It's been a long day.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. So for those of you who aren't here, I apologize for missing the first few minutes. We've got a new assignment. The assignment is due next Wednesday. The assignment will help you get ready for the second exam, which is a week from Friday. So that's the short version of what you missed. All right. Now, hey, Lindsay, did you see who your partners are on the assignment?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So back to the theory of the firm. You are familiar with two types of demand. You're familiar with market demand, which is, and you're familiar with individual demand. Individual demand is a person's demand for a product at different price levels. The market demand is everybody's demand for the product at different price levels, okay? So now we need to introduce a new concept called the demand curve faced by an individual firm, okay? A demand curve faced by an individual firm just looks like a downward sloping demand curve, okay? This is essentially the firm's market share. What fraction of the total market demand is this firm in a position to supply, okay? So we start with a downward sloping demand curve. Now, I learned something over the last week, and I think it's really cool, but then I'm an old guy. So for you, it might just be pretty boring, but I'm going to introduce it to you anyway. I learned how to use the whiteboard. Thanks for the smile, Lily. I appreciate that. Okay, can you guys see the whiteboard here? Like this, right? Got it. Good. Okay, that's not the graph you should be writing down. Okay, clear my drawing. Okay, so let's start with, no, we're going to start with yeah, that should work. Okay, all right, so here is the price axis. Here is the quantity axis. All right, let's put in some labels. Just in case you guys forget, we'll go here, price, and then we'll go here. Forgot to hit the button, quantity. Okay, now let's change the color, give you a little contrast. And here is, well, that's not what I wanted to do. It's supposed to change the color there. Changed, thank you. Now we'll do the line. Just start it up here just to be clear. Okay, that's the demand curve for this firm, right? It's a downward sloping demand curve from left to right. It looks just like demand curves are supposed to look like. Now, a couple things to think about here. One, if you pick a point on the demand curve, what information does the curve give you? Like suppose we picked this point right here. Well, that's not what I wanted. Squiggle. How about that point right there? What do we know from that point right there? We know two pieces of information.
The quantity demanded at a given price.
Yes, we know the price and we know the quantity. That's really important information, okay? And here's why. We're gonna assume that our firm is trying to maximize profits. We know that profit is total revenue minus total cost, okay? We haven't spent a lot of time thinking about total revenue, so we're gonna do that now. All right, so let's go back to I think you can still see the whiteboard. I'm actually moving to some other things. Okay, how do we sell more output here? Let me just write something in first. We'll put it right here. total revenue equals price times quantity, right? So total revenue is the money the firm brings in by selling its product, right? Now, if we start at this point and we want to sell more quantity, what do we have to do?
Lower the price.
We have to lower the price. So think about this. We lower P to increase Q. When we lower P to increase Q, what happens to our total revenues? The answer is it's not obvious what happens to total revenues, right? Because price is going down and quantity is going up. So just on the face of it, revenues could increase or decrease as we produce more output. It turns out that both things happen, okay? Let me just push this. Which way can I push this? What happens if I do that? Okay. It turns out, now let's see, back to black, draw. All right. Over to red. Quantity, whoopsie, sorry about that, quantity. And over here, total revenue. Now it turns out that for most firms, when they sell more output, at first their revenue goes up and then it goes down. Okay, in other words, the revenue curve looks something like let me change my color again.
So stupid.
It looks like this.
So for my project,
Scott. Okay, right? So revenues go up and then they go down. Okay, now if you think about this, you can see what's actually going on here. What's going on is at first, it takes a small decrease in price to cause a big increase in quantity sold. Then it causes about the same percentage decrease in price to increase your sales. And then eventually you get to the point where it takes a huge decrease in price in order to sell more output, right? So, you know, this is neither good nor bad. It's just a fact of the math. This is what a total revenue curve is always going to look like, okay? At least for 95+% of all firms. Okay, now, what about total cost? If you remember, total cost curves tend to be increasing at an increasing rate, okay? So let me draw a total cost curve. Whoopsie, no, that's not going to work because I need a curve. Okay. Yeah, that's perhaps not my best work, but you know, I think you get the point here. This curve is total cost. This curve down here is total revenue, okay? How do we find profit from this graph? If you remember, let's go down here. Profit is total revenue minus total cost, right? So What that means is you literally look at the vertical distance. For every quantity, you look at the difference between total revenue and total cost. That difference is the profit. Okay, so let me give you an example. For let's pick, who we're going to pick on. Lindsay, how about you? Okay, Lindsay, this is your time. Lindsay, at this point, how much profit is the firm making?
Like the maximum profit?
Nope. Look again. Think about this. Total revenue minus total cost at this quantity right here. How much profit is the firm making?
I don't know.
Who's got an answer?
Is this when they break even?
It is. Look, Lindsay, at that intersection, total cost just equals total revenue, right? So profit is actually zero there. Okay, that is called the break-even point. There's another break-even point. It's down here at the origin, right? If you produce no output, you earn no revenues. If you produce no output, in this case, you have no costs, right? So literally what you're gonna do, how can I do this and not mess stuff up? I have an idea. Okay, I need another color, maybe a green. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this. We're going to draw, and we're going to say, look at this quantity of output right here. Okay, that's supposed to be green. Now, why isn't it green? All right. If you go all the way up here, you'll see that this is the total revenue. This is the total cost. The difference between total revenue and total cost is total profit. So imagine that vertical distance and bring it down to about there. Okay, so at this quantity, total revenue minus total cost is this amount. So this is profit right here. Okay, we've now changed this label. So the vertical axis is actually total revenue, total cost, and profit, all on the same graph. Okay, we know that at this quantity, total profit is 0. So we'll mark it 0 here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to find the level of output where the total revenue curve is furthest above total cost, because that's where profit is going to be a maximum. It looks to me like about here. And it looks to me like the difference between total revenue and total cost is about that much. Down here it's 0 again. So if we were to draw the profit graph, and let me see if I can do it in green. The profit graph is going to look something like, oh, that's a line. I don't want a line, I want a curve. The profit graph is going to look something like, whoopsie, like that. Okay, notice if you, Lindsay, if you go past this quantity here, the more you produce, the more money you lose, right? Profits are now negative and they just keep going negative because total cost is going to explode above total revenue. Okay, does everybody see what we're doing here? Okay, so how much output should the firm supply? Well, if the firm wants to maximize its profits, it wants to be at the top of the profit function, which would be this quantity right here. In fact, I'm gonna choose this arrow. Wow, that is really ugly. Sorry, guys. Let me see if I can erase part of this. Nope, didn't want to do that. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, so let me try again. Arrow. Okay, and let's put our text back in. Max profit is TR minus TC. Okay, and so where the arrow is, that's where the profit is maximum. Okay, so we're always thinking in terms of what is the quantity that we want to produce and what is the quantity that we want to supply. And we want to choose the quantity where profit is the highest. All right, any questions? Okay, now I do the same thing in the notes. Let me save that. I do the same thing in the notes, but using numbers, because some people like the specificity of actual numbers here. So what we're doing here is exactly the same as what we just did. Okay, we've got quantity and price. So each of these pairs of numbers gives us the demand curve. Quantity times price equals total revenue. That's what these things are. So 3 times 7 is 21. 4 times 6 is 24, right? And then we've got total costs that increase at an increasing rate. Okay, and then we just calculate the profit as total revenue minus total cost. So 9 minus 2 is 7, 16 minus 3 is 13, 21 minus 5 is 16, 24 minus 8 is 16, 25 minus 12 is 13, and it starts to fall from there. Okay, so we want to stop when we hit quantity 4, because if we keep going, our profit will actually decline. All right, any questions about that?
Why wouldn't you stop at 3?
Okay. 3 is not a wrong answer, but the firm generally doesn't know that it's reached the peak until it goes to 4 and considers 5, because as long as profit is rising, you want to keep producing more, right? As soon as it flattens out, that's the sign that you're at the top or at least near the top. And if you go further, your profit's actually going to fall.
Gotcha.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, now there's actually an easier way to do this. Okay, the easier way is introducing marginal revenue. We already know what marginal cost is, okay? Marginal revenue is defined as all the other marginal things. It's the change in total revenue from selling one more unit of output. Okay, so if we look at this table, total revenue goes 9, 16, 21, 24. Marginal revenue of 4 is 24 minus 21 is 3. Marginal revenue of 3 is 21 minus 16 is 5. Marginal revenue of 2 is 21 16 minus 9 is 7. Marginal revenue for 1 is 9 minus 0 is 9. Okay, so marginal revenue curves go down from left to right. There's actually a trick here that I want to show you in a minute. Okay. All right. let me go back to the whiteboard to show you. Whiteboard, share. Okay, let's move along. Let's save that one. Move along. Move you guys back over to the other side of the page. Okay. All right. Here's the trick. It turns out that when you have a straight line demand curve, and I always use straight line demand curves in my class for this reason. Okay. That's the price axis. Here's the quantity axis. Let me just push that a little bit more. Here's price. Here's quantity. Okay, now let's draw our demand curve. Okay, here's our demand curve. Let me just put a label on it. First, I need to change the color. Demand, right? Okay, so here's the trick. When you have a straight line demand curve, it is easy as can be to draw the marginal revenue curve. The marginal revenue curve always starts at the same point on the vertical axis and lies under the demand curve and intersects the quantity axis exactly halfway between the origin and where the demand curve intersects the quantity axis. So let me show you. Okay. This point here is halfway between the origin and where the demand curve hits. And so, except I really, really, really want to do a different color here. Okay, pardon my math, but that is what it's supposed to look like. So let's go back here. Come on. Okay, so if you have your demand curve, it's super easy to draw your marginal revenue curve. You just know that it starts up here, goes down underneath the demand curve, intersects halfway between the origin and this point. Okay, now, when you're using the marginal approach to find the profit maximizing quantity of output, what you're going to do is you're going to compare marginal revenue with marginal cost. What does a marginal cost curve look like? Can somebody remind me? Kevin, how about you? What's a marginal cost curve look like? All of you athletes should know this.
Oh, is it the Nike swoosh?
It is the Nike swoosh. It looks like that. Maybe a little smoother, but that is the swoosh. Okay, so this is marginal cost. Absolutely. Okay. Now, the general rule of profit maximization. This is one of two things that I hope you remember from our class 5 years from today. The first thing is everything has an opportunity cost. And opportunity cost is the value of, what you give up. The second thing is this general rule for profit maximization. What it says is, let me write this down. To maximize profit, choose quantity where MR equals MC. Okay. Learn that tonight, and it will take you a long way. I'm going to explain it to you, but just write that down. Okay, now the question is, what quantity is that on the graph? So let me find a volunteer. Let's see. Emily, you're a volunteer. Okay, Emily, where's the quantity?
You mean the x-axis?
Yeah, well, I mean, where on the graph defines the quantity that we want to supply? So we're not actually on the x-axis, but we read down to the x-axis.
Where they intersect?
Right here. Can you see the cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yes. So that's what you do. You find where MR equals MC, and then you just read the quantity right here. Okay, let me see if I can put an arrow in there. Gosh, that's an awful drawing. Okay, that's not so bad. Okay, so this is where this identifies where you want to be. Okay. Any questions about what I've said? I haven't explained why, but I will next. Okay. Think about the definitions of marginal revenue and marginal cost. Marginal revenue is how much we add to our revenues by selling another unit of output. Okay, another way to think about it is how much we're adding to our profits as we sell another unit of output. Marginal cost is how much we're taking away from our profits if we sell another unit of output. So if you go over here, say, okay, at this quantity, which is greater, marginal revenue or marginal cost? Margot? At this quantity, which is greater, marginal revenue or marginal cost? You thinking?
Is it revenue?
Absolutely. The marginal revenue is up here. Marginal cost is down here. What that says is we're going to be adding more to profits than we're going to be taking away from profits if we produce that unit of output. So we should definitely do it. Okay. In fact, whenever, let me put that down here. Oopsie, let me go back to, if I can get this to work. No, that's not going to work. Whenever MR is greater than MC, the firm wants to increase Q to increase profit. Okay, so to the left of this quantity here, marginal revenue is always above marginal cost. So the message here is keep producing more and you'll add to total profit. It's only when you hit this point where the amount that you're adding to profit just equals the amount that you're taking away from profit. So your profit at that point is not changing. Okay, another way to say that is we're right at the peak of our profit hill. Okay, now if you don't believe the graphical analysis, that's okay. You can tell the same story with the numbers here in the notes. Okay, let me scroll down a little bit. Okay, so here we have, in this table, we have quantity, we have marginal revenue, we have marginal cost, and I introduced something called marginal profit. What do you think marginal profit is? Sierra, what's marginal profit?
It is the additional profit for every additional output.
Correct. If you sell one more unit, produce and sell one more unit of output, how much does your total profit go up? Look at this. This is total profit down here. 13 minus 7 equals $6 marginal profit. 16 minus 13 equals $3 marginal profit. Okay, so marginal profit is literally the profit associated with each additional unit of output. The other way to figure it out is just subtract MR minus MC, right? So right here, 9 minus 2 is 7, 7 minus 1 is 6, 5 minus 2 is 3, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so let's go back to our rule from the whiteboard. If you're at a quantity where MR is greater than MC, should you stop there? Amethyst, what do you think? Should you stop there? Is that maximizing your profits? If MR is greater than MC, like this point right here?
You wouldn't stop, would you?
No, you want to keep going because you're adding more to profit than you're taking away. Okay, so you keep selling more, selling more. When do you stop?
When you
Mac?
even,
Mac, when do you stop?
when you can't make any more money,
And how do you know where that is?
when it doesn't, like, when it's even.
When your marginal revenue just equals your marginal cost. So
Yeah.
you're adding as much to profit as you're taking away. Now, if you look at these profit numbers down here, what you'll see is you want to be at the high point. And the high point is, well, it's either at 3 or at 4, but you don't know that you're there until you get to 4. Because at 4, you're making no money on that last unit of output. The marginal profit is 0. And that's because the MR equals the MC. That's a sign that you're maximizing your profit. All right. Any questions? All right. I'm going to wrap up shortly because I get the feeling that you guys are getting worn out by this, and that's okay. I mean, this is really dense stuff. Okay, so there's a couple more things we need to do. One is, let's go back to our whiteboard. I'm not doing this because I think it's cool. At least I'm not going to admit that. All right. Now, what else do we need to decide once we decide how much output to produce? Amy, where are you? Amy. Come on, Amy.
Sorry, it keeps buffering.
Oh my gosh, Amethyst is being attacked by a wolf.
Yeah, sorry, my dog is in front of my computer.
It's totally okay. Okay, Amy. Amy.
Yes.
Oh, we have some more people that joined us. Okay, Amy. What's the next most important question that we need to answer as a business?
Can you give me a hint?
Well, yes. You want to sell your product, right?
Yes.
So what do you need to decide before you can sell your product? Salid, is that you there?
Yeah.
Awesome. Amy, what do you need to decide? Amy, what's your major?
Business administration.
Yeah, okay. So if you're running a business, what do you need to decide? Basic question. What is it?
How to make a profit?
No, we've already established that this green arrow shows how much output you want to supply. But now there's one other important question for you.
how much to supply?
No, that's right here. We already did that. This is quantity.
Who to sell it to? I'm not sure.
How about what price to charge?
Oh, that would make sense.
Thank you. Okay, how do we figure that out? Well, it turns out it's easy. Okay, I know, I say everything is easy, but this really is easy. Okay, here's what we do. First, let's go back to, no, I'm gonna go with black. Black is beautiful. All right. What we do is we start with our quantity right here, right? Amy, you see that? Amy.
Yes, I see it.
Okay. You draw a vertical line up. Now, why is it not drawing? That's really, let's try again. Start at the quantity. Draw a, well, it does not like me, so I'm going to draw a vertical line down, except it still doesn't like me. Gosh, this is no fun. All right, maybe I can fake it here. From your quantity, you go up vertically until you hit the demand curve. When you hit the demand curve, what do you read off the left-hand side? Amy? What does a demand curve show if you pick the quantity?
The price?
Yes, look, quantity is on the x-axis, price is on the y-axis. The demand curve tells you that, right? So let me just summarize what we said here. What we said is you determine the quantity by finding where MR equals MC, and then once you have that quantity, you go up to the demand curve and read the price off right here. Okay, so quantity and price, those are the two most important things that the firm needs to decide in the short run. And in fact, the combination of quantity and price, and this graph, as we have it drawn here now, is what we call short run equilibrium for the firm. It's where do they want to be? What quantity do they want to produce? What price do they want to charge? That's the short run equilibrium. All right. Any questions? There's one more thing I want to teach you tonight. Okay. Now, let's see. Who should I call on? Carolyn, maybe. Let's see. I've already called on Christine. I've already called on Emily. Who's left? All right. Let's go with Carolyn. Okay, Carolyn, you're on. Are you excited?
No.
Okay, Carolyn, what's your major?
Marketing.
Okay, then. This is important. Okay, Carolyn, you have identified your producer equilibrium right here, producer equilibrium, the price and the quantity that you're going to sell. Okay, I may have misspoken earlier. Okay, now, you know you're maximizing profit by producing at this quantity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now here's the question. How much profit are you actually making? Is it a lot or a little?
A little.
Well, we don't know that yet, okay? The most important thing that you can do now is figure out the profit margin. Let me write that down here. All right, text, profit margin. The profit margin means on average, are you making money or losing money? Okay, the profit margin is defined as price minus average cost. Okay. Price is actually average revenue So what this means is if your price is greater than your average cost, then you are making a positive profit margin. That means you're making money. Do you see that, Carolyn?
Mhm.
Okay. So here's what you do. You pick the quantity where you're operating. You go up and you read the price off, and then you read the average cost off, okay? Which means we need to draw in the average cost curve here, okay? And I'm gonna do that. What do average cost curves look like? Does anybody remember? Yes, you do. I'm convinced you do. What do average cost curves look like? They look like U shapes, right? They look like upside down parabolas. Okay, they look like, oh crud, I messed up. All right, that's okay. We can make that go away. They look like this, U shapes, right? And remember, we know that the marginal cost goes through the average cost at the minimum point here, right? So the Nike sign is the marginal cost. The really ugly U shape here is the average cost curve. All right, so let me erase that. Okay, now let's go back to what I was gonna say before. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna draw our average cost curve in wherever it happens to be. Okay, it's gonna be, let's say it is right here. It's gonna look like that. Okay, now let's go back to text. Let me write in average cost. Okay, everybody with me so far? Okay, now, if we supply this quantity of output, is our profit margin positive or negative? Are we making money or are we losing money at this quantity? Susie, what do you think?
Making money.
Yeah, price is up here. Average cost is down there. Our price is greater than our average cost. So this vertical distance right here between price and average cost is our profit margin. Okay, it's our profit margin or our average profit. Average profit is just another name for it. If we take our average profit and we multiply it times the number of units that we're producing and selling, we're going to get total profit. Okay, let me just write that down since you might want to remember that. Profit equals profit margin times quantity. The profit margin tells us for every quantity that we produce on average, how much money are we making? So if we take the profit margin and we multiply it by quantity, we're going to get our total profit. Okay. The way we do that is, here is the profit margin. It's this vertical distance. And then we multiply it times the quantity, and we end up with, see if I can make this work. Now, how did that get to be a red line? I want it to be a black line. Select, draw, line. Okay, it's not a great diagram. That's supposed to be an actual rectangle. But the area of this rectangle is total profit because it's profit margin times the number of units that we sell. Okay, another way to think about this is total revenue is price times quantity. So total revenue is the big rectangle. Total cost is average cost times quantity. Average cost times quantity is the lower rectangle. The difference between the big rectangle and the lower rectangle is profit, which is the upper rectangle right there. okay? It's important that you understand conceptually what these things are. I'm not going to give you a math problem on the exam, okay? But you need to be able to read the graph properly. All right, any questions? Last chance. Well, not forever, but for tonight. All right. Okay. So the last thing that I wanted to do is talk a little bit about the homework problem. What we will do next time at the beginning is we will do the rest of my notes. We will talk about things like price discrimination, value creation, and other business strategies. We'll talk about monopoly profits, market power, all of that stuff. Okay. All right, so let's jump over and talk briefly about the problem. I don't know if you've looked at it, but I'll show you here. Okay.
Well, that was interesting.
Oops, that was a mistake. Let me do this. All right. Believe I can share my screen with you again. Okay. So you manage a business that is imperfectly competitive, just like the one that we were drawing tonight. Start the story by drawing your business in long-run equilibrium. Okay, in other words, I want to see demand, I want to see marginal revenue, I want to see marginal cost, and I want to see average cost. Okay. Long-run equilibrium is defined in detail in module 8.1. Looking at perfectly competitive firms, what you need to do is take what's in module 8.1 and translate it to work for an imperfectly competitive firm. Okay, so that's the first part of the problem. Draw the graph of the firm in long-run equilibrium. We always start in long-run equilibrium. Second, suppose there's an increase in demand for your industry's product. How does that affect your business in the short run? What happens to the price you charge and the quantity of output you supply? What happens to your profits? Show graphically and explain. Okay, and then what happens to all of those things in the long run? Okay, show graphically and explain in detail. All right, and I make what I think is a really serious comment here. Don't just divide up the problem into parts and do one part and then have somebody slap them all together, because every part depends on the part that came before. And in any case, you all need to learn how to do the whole problem. Okay, you can expect to see a problem like this on the exam. So this is really important. All right, any questions right now? I know I threw a lot at you tonight. That's why we have the video, so you can go back and watch it over if you want. All right, any questions? All right, well then, have a good evening. If you run into questions while you're doing the assignment, feel free to shoot me an email and I can help you. All right. Good night, everybody.